Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money-colored commentator. On today's show, Overcoming Financial Challenges, part 3 in our series on Getting Your Financial House in Order, sponsored by LifeSize Solutions and the Society for Financial Awareness. Well, welcome to our third segment, Getting Financially Fit. You know, we're trying to get into a place where we have some basic financial thinking, that, and I mean basic, we're at the fundamentals here. We can't do this, we're not going to go any farther. I want to be able to overcome the financial challenges in our life. Being fiscally fit is following a set of behaviors that will help you lead to financial independence. So why am I changing my behavior? Because I want financial independence. Once you understand the psychological play here, you want to position your thinking so that you start talking to yourself and making sure that you agree that the reason why you're not doing a desire and you only want to pay money that are on necessities until we get it financially fit, then you're going to have to completely pre-program the way you think. Right now, the marketing teams in all of corporate America are looking at ways to penetrate your thinking and to get you to spend the dollar. And most of the time, spend that dollar. You're not spending that dollar. You're borrowing that dollar for your future. So I want to commit to replace old habits with successful habits, and nothing will change until you do. The math is the math. The thing that makes the difference is, are we really changing? Now, I want to talk about some of the basic understanding challenges that we have. Working in retirement. Think about it. Everybody wants to retire at 62 and start collecting Social Security, but we know that that math isn't on our side. So we're now looking at stalling to age 70. We're not only working to age 70, but some of us are now doing hybrid retirement, where we're working a little past 65 and 70 and still taking constructive receipt of our retirement money. That's called a hybrid retirement. Don't retire early in your 60s when you know that you're going to have longevity possibilities of living into the 90, 95, even 100. You'll want to be able to think about how long can I work to age 70, maybe as a new number, and also a hybrid where you do a little bit of work, maybe even a new idea, new job. You become an entrepreneur, or you can actually create your own business on the side. Something that you can do in retirement and also still take constructive receipt of your retirement income. So it's a hybrid retirement. You're working and you're still actually walking in retirement. Longer life expectancy. Let me tell you that if we're going to, the average American male in America is 86.6 years. The average female is 88.8 years. And the survivor of a marriage, which is 87% of the time, is the female. She's going to live to 93. So there's a little benefit of being married. If you're going to be living to 93 on the average, that means half of American women that come out of a marriage are going to be living longer. So you need to start incorporating, what is my retirement going to look like? And what if I'm going to retire well into my 95 to maybe even age 100? Also, are you thinking about a new standard of living? When I'm thinking about a standard of living, I'm thinking about, here's my standard of living as I worked. Will I have to change my standard of living? Will I have to bring it down? Remember, the boomers are the first generation taking a mortgage into retirement, unheard of by succeeding or preceding generations. Everybody had their house paid off by 65. But today, that's not the way it is. We've been pinned. The baby boomers have been between two generations, one taking care of their children's education and taking care of their parents' long-term care costs. So I understand the power that has when you're burning the candle on both ends, but in all truthfulness and all honesty, we're kind of stuck here. We need to figure out, are we going to have a new standard of living when we retire? And we need to start managing to that. If we have 5, 10 years out, you should be on a debt reduction schedule that should be really your number one goal while you're putting money aside. Trying to reduce debt because you want to come into retirement with zero debt, including your mortgage. The impact of inflation. Listen, I remember going to my first concert in my junior prom. I went to see Gary Puckett in the Union Gap in Chicago, and it was 31 cents a gallon for gas. Think about it now. We're at what, $2.25 or whatever it is. All inflation issues that eat the power of our purchasing dollar. We have to watch out for inflation. So even in retirement, we have to be careful. Are we buying goods and services, and are those goods and services always going up every year? Even if we have a bump in Social Security, doesn't mean that it's going to impact the actual cost of goods and services that we actually buy as necessities. So it's really important in your mind to say, what is the impact of inflation and how will it wreck the power of my dollar? When I think about buying a loaf of bread for 29 cents and now paying $3 and something, it's changed. Everything's changed so dramatically. Social Security for most Americans is their only retirement account. And sadly, it is not going to be enough for retirement. So if that's all you have, you need to start thinking of how you're going to face your actual lifestyle in retirement, or start putting aside money and also thinking about doing a hybrid retirement. So you're retired, but you're still working at part-time as your health lets you and allows. Personal savings right now in America is insufficient. Over 40% of Americans don't have $1,000 in the bank for an emergency. We've talked about in the first two segments of developing an emergency fund. My children, or most of my children, I think I'm doing the math right, are all millennials. All my children have some money in the bank so that they would not be caught, without employment, or they wouldn't have a deduction. They'd have to pay a deduction on their home, or they'd have a repair on their car that they didn't know was coming. You have to have personal savings, and it has to be sufficient, but most Americans don't have sufficient savings. And the median income right now in 2017 is actually kind of down. It hasn't really kept pace with inflation. Non-housing debt in the United States, you can see the common challenges right now that we face just on the issue of debt. According to the Federal Reserve report in 2016, outstanding credit card debt is over $750 billion. And I think in my first segment, I actually had that updated almost $1 trillion. It's at $926 billion in debt. When you think about that, look at the rise between 2004, 2010, and last year, 2016. This number jumped significantly. Here you're going from 2.21 trillion to 2.59. But then we jumped almost a whole trillion all in the last 6 years. So those 6 years and this 6 years, that tells me we're not paying our debt off. A lot of this is not new debt. This is old debt we have never retired. It's a tragedy. And think about it. Financial aid right now, student loan debt, stands at $1 trillion plus, and it's not going to get smaller right now until we figure out a way to bring education down to normal public education. And that's not going to happen until we have a revolutionary thinking in our mind. It isn't just paying for tuition. Probably the best thing is to shut down federal loans. That alone would bring down the cost of college alone, because they wouldn't have the government funding their entire enterprise. Now, the high cost, that was just a little political statement. The high cost of credit. $2,000 credit balance and a $200,000 mortgage. When you look at the principal and interest that you're paying, look at these numbers. The blue represents your principal, and the orange represents your actual interest payment. And there's not much green going on here, but the green that we do have, that represents the differences in your credit balance. Now, if I'm looking at this and I have this, my job is to get rid of this small debt because it's so costly. And I want to be able to retire my mortgage as long as the numbers make sense. Remember, some people like to carry a 3% mortgage into retirement because they can't get money at any other price, and they want to use their other money for investments so that they're making an arbitrage between a 3% mortgage and whatever they're making in their outside investments. If that's true, then maybe I'm okay with it. But for most Americans, they're not investing. So it's really good and a good thinking, and especially good behavior, to try to retire debt. Getting out of debt. Debt snowball method. The debt snowball method is I go after the biggest chunk of change I can and retire it as early as I can. The other side is go after the biggest cost that's loan. You may have two different debts. Your debt over here is quite large, but it's only 6%. Maybe it's your lease for your car, or the payment on your car, or second mortgage. But over here, you have a smaller debt, but you have higher percentage. You're paying 12, 13, 15%. So you'll want to be able to sit down and say, what will get me to my cash flow goals fastest? Which one am I paying it down? You have to look at that, do the math. It won't take you too long. The math doesn't lie. Numbers are good. And you'll look at that. And modified snowball method, you might want to try, we're trying to do both at the same time. We're trying to take care of the higher interest and the bigger debt and trying to reduce them slowly but surely. And credit counseling. There's nothing wrong with having to go into an office with a financial advisor and say, I need help. I can't do this on my own. Most financial advisors are willing to help persons that are really serious about it. That's the one part that you probably never see People coming in, how serious? Well, sometimes if you take out the credit card and you get the scissors out, that tells you how serious a person may be when it comes to reducing their debt. Don't forget to watch our next segment on gaining control of your finances through budgeting, part 4 in our series on getting your financial house in order. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.